What happened yesterday was they reinstated two teams, men's crew and women's rowing, and now joining us on the program to talk about that decision is the Senior Associate Athletic Director, and that's Larry Dougherty. Larry, it's Zach, Gelb, and Chase Sr. How you doing?
Great, Zach. Chase, how you guys doing?
Well, we're doing great, and we appreciate you giving us a minute. So yesterday, they reinstate two programs from the original that was cut down from 24 to 17, now bringing it back up to 19. Men's crew and women's rowing were the two sports that were reinstated. Just give me the reaction to yesterday's decision to restate those two sports.
Well, I think it was all positive. I mean, Zach, in terms of the fact that we had the city of Philadelphia. And we had, one of our trustees step forward, Trustee Lenfest, to make considerable contributions to this effort. I mean, Trustee Lenfest, really stepped forward, and the city of Philadelphia. I mean, the canoe house is a historic landmark and should be restored. So the fact that this is going to, impact it at this time and bring back two programs, that's tremendous. I mean, I think everyone still feels for the five impacted sports that will not be brought back, but for the two sports, men's crew and women's rowing, this was a great day for them.
There was a lot of irate people when you initially had the decision to cut men's crew and women's rowing because of the tradition, like you mentioned. And obviously they had people that supported them, the city of Philadelphia, as well as the Lenfest Foundation by yesterday's announcement. But when I look at the other teams that are cut, if I was trying to save the program, and I don't think that it can be done, you would look for some other people to go out there and save it, not associated with Temple University. Do you think there is a chance that the other five sports could possibly be reinstated? Or was yesterday's decision pretty much the final reinstatement of any programs?
Well, Zach, I think yesterday's decision was the final decision for those five sports, unfortunately. I mean, the Board of Trustees, the Athletic Department Administration, the President have all looked through all of the recommendations. I mean, there's been countless emails of support for all the programs, not just for men's crew and women's rowing, that we've received. I've seen many emails from parents, from alums, from administrators, just to see what could be done, looking at all the factors. And really, there was nothing that has been brought to the table that really could change the initial decision on those five sports. The opportunity that the five, that the all seven sports, really it's six programs, because men's and indoor and outdoor track is represented by one coach, and the T7 that had talking to the Board of Trustees a few weeks ago and trying to give ideas and recommendations on how they could save their sports. That was all, factored in and looked at again over the last few weeks by the board. And the only thing that really changed significantly was that the city of Philadelphia and Trustee Lenfest stepped up with considerable contributions to restore the boathouse. And for men's crew and women's rowing, that was basically the onus of the decision to eliminate their sports back in December.
Senior Associate Athletic Director Larry Dougherty joins us on the main event, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And Larry, a thing that stood out to me yesterday was when Neil D. Theobald called Temple a mid-major school. What do you have to say to that, and do you think that Temple currently is a mid-major school?
Well, Chase, that's an astute observation by you. I think that might have been a little awkward language by our president, who is really very savvy on athletics. But I think if you looked at it over the whole, there's five power conferences, and we're all very much aware of that. Those five power conferences generate $20 million plus usually for conference revenue to their member schools. So if you consider that element and say that everyone else is below that, then I think that's what the president of Theobald was saying, that every school that is not in the Power Five, in his mind, will be considered a mid-major to a low major. So, again, Temple tries to fund its athletic programs in a way that we can compete with, the Power Five conferences. So, using the term, and we've all heard the term mid-major, I wouldn't put Temple into the mid-majors as you would maybe put a St. Joseph's or whatever, because we have a major Division I football program.
A lot of the reasoning of these sports cuts was that Temple was not able to provide some of these teams adequate facilities. And for the baseball team, to be specific, they signed a deal to play at the Camden River Shark Stadium over there in Camden, New Jersey, and the Phillies also offered to let Temple play on some of their fields down at FDR Park. Why weren't those facilities able to help save the baseball program here?
Well, still on the one thing, I mean, and I appreciate that, Chase. I mean, that was considered. And I've been over at the River Shark Stadiums, and Adam Weber, their president, that was very gracious of him to make that offer. I mean, clearly there's still a financial element to what we're talking about there, and it's not your home. It's you're renting the home, and at certain times, St. Joseph's, for instance, used that as a stopgap facility for 2 years while they were building an on-campus baseball facility. So they were able to survive for 2 years while they're building. And playing games at 11 o'clock in the morning, conference games on a Friday, for instance, your time flexibility for a baseball program to do that on the long term would be very difficult. And again, we're not. It's not like it's on campus where we're going. We're still traveling to Camden with our teams and practicing down at where the Phillies complex is down there. If we're able to do that. There's a lot of elements that are there. I mean, it's a great offer. It's nice, but it wasn't going to be the end-all answer for what we would do to sustain those programs for the long term.
We all know what's going on with Temple and Title IX. We've read the articles online and in the newspapers. And when this decision was initially made back in December, when you held a press conference, you were talking a lot about being more compliant with Title IX. How does this decision to cut it now officially to 19 help Temple be more compliant with Title IX?
Well, I think the one thing is, I mean, there's been 4 prongs that we've talked about all along to this decision. I mean, one was financial, the other being the facilities, student-athlete welfare, and then Title IX. To me, once you've made a decision like this to eliminate varsity sports, no matter what the number is, at that point, you're going to make yourself, Title IX always comes into play for no matter what school or what institution is going to be making that decision. Then when the dust settles, you want to make sure that you're funding your male and female sports the same way to be compliant with Title IX, to make sure your scholarships are in line. And this is going to give Temple University an opportunity to be fully compliant with Title IX. Not that Temple was out of line too much with Title IX prior to, but this will put Temple in a position where we can now become compliant with Title IX. So again, Title IX wouldn't have been a driving factor in this. Title IX was one of 4 factors.
The most rigorous part of this decision, and you called it one of the toughest days of your life when you made this announcement, and that was because you look at some of these players that are recruited in, and whether it's the baseball team, the football team, the basketball team, or the rowing team, they're made promises. The coaches say, we'll bring you in here for 4 years and make you the best person you could be, both on the playing field and off of the playing field, and they sell Temple. We all know what a recruiting pitch is, and when you have a parent or an athlete that was made these promises of these sports that were cut, I understand why they feel upset and why they are agitated. But what do you say to those parents and athletes of the teams that were cut? Because when they signed to come to Temple on scholarship, they were promised a lot.
Yeah, Zach, it's a good question. I mean, and the one thing is, when these student athletes, were signed, or they signed NOIs, or they came to Temple to compete, this decision wasn't, was either in its infancy or wasn't even being done. Okay, so it isn't like we were disingenuous and we brought student athletes in, and then knowing full well that we were going to cut the sport that they were going to be competing in. So, clearly, I think our administration, myself, I can look any parent in the eye and explain that. And what we're trying to do right now, and what we always try to do as administrators, if it's at the university or at athletics, is to do what's best for Temple University and its student athletes and its students. So this is what we feel is the best move going forward, in terms of we just cannot continue to fund 24 varsity sports in a proper way. And that's where the student-athlete welfare comes back into play. And it is very difficult looking at just a student-athlete in the eye or a parent, don't get me wrong, and also a coach like Fred Turov, who's given his life to men's gymnastics. And hopefully he can continue to move forward now and build Temple Gymnastics as a club team, which I think he's already starting to work with Trustee Katz on that. But it is very difficult to look a parent in the eye, don't get me wrong. But it's something that we had to do for the best interest of Temple University as a whole.
The men's and women's soccer teams remain up at Ambler's campus, and that's where they play their home games. Obviously, in the future, it will be extremely beneficial for the following of the team, as well as the university, for the soccer teams to play their games on or around Temple's campus. Kevin Clark mentioned yesterday that there is some discussion about building a complex on or around Temple's campus. How much of a realistic possibility is that?
It's a possibility. It's realistic, Chase. Now, I'm not sure how, when we say complex. I just think that if you look at men's and women's soccer, are much easier to transport or to bring back to the main campus than baseball and softball would be in terms of cost. So, is it realistic? Is it something that we've thought at? Yes, we've even looked at plans to see how quickly we could get something there, even in the short term, to bring them back on campus. I mean, the teams do practice here on campus as well. They've used the Edward Golson football field to practice, and a lot of our teams obviously are taking advantage of the pavilion that we have that are available to us.
Larry, with these programs being cut, how does it allow the programs that are already in place at Temple compete in the American Athletic Conference, both in the present and in the future?
That's a great question, Chase. I mean, again, there's been a perception out there that this money is going to go to football, men's basketball, women's basketball. This money that we're saving is going to go into what we're preaching about, making a better student-athlete experience here for all of our sports, including mainly our Olympic sports. We have some plans here. I'm really not at liberty to disclose them, but within the next 6 months, you'll see some of these things being rolled out in terms of plans to enhance the experience of our student-athletes of our 19 sports moving forward.
Larry Dock joins us on the hotline. A few more questions with the Senior Associate Athletic Director of Temple University. And Larry, we had Matt Rule in studio for 30 minutes last week, and it was great. And the athletic cuts did come up. And when we were talking to him, he said he feels for the university, feels for all the people that were cut. And he also mentioned how he attends some of the events that most people don't, whether it's a baseball game with his family or the school orchestra, stuff like that. And there's people out there that are very annoyed with the football team, and they think that the football team is a major decision behind this move. What do you say to those kinds of people? Because I do believe the football team hasn't been treated fairly by some of the fans here at Temple University as of late.
Well, Zach, you are very astute, and I can clearly say that, when we looked at the budgets of the conference that we're competing in right now, and even in the Atlantic 10 Conference and the Mid-American Conference, we were at the bottom financially for operating budgets for our Olympic sports. In terms of football, men's basketball, that's still not the case. We weren't at the bottom. Pulling this money and moving it into a football or a basketball program is so off base. This is something that we really need to bring our Olympic sports in line with our competition right now. And also, again, to make sure that our student athletes, when they're here, are treated well in terms of academic support, hiring more tutors and more academic personnel, more trainers and strength and conditioning personnel, so we can again be in line with our peer institutions in the American Athletic Conference.
Before we let you run, as we're talking to Larry Dock, and on the way out here, you've been here for Temple University for 10 years. You play a major role in the university. So does Kevin Clark and President Theobald and Mr. Kraft as well. What do you want the big picture of Temple athletics to look like? And obviously these cuts do have to play a factor into that.
Well, I mean, again, I look at this and say this is going to be. We have a lot of pain here right now. I mean, clearly pain where the student athletes are impacted, and I feel for them. But in 5 years or 3 years or 5 years, you're going to look at this university and say, where we are now and where we're going to be in terms of competition in the American Athletic Conference. When Chase mentioned the mid-major comment. We don't feel that we are a mid-major. We don't want to act like a mid-major. We want to, fund our student athletes so they never feel like they're a mid-major. So I think the big picture is to be, in line with the Power 5 conferences, in terms of where we want to be. And, to me, that's where we want to be in terms of facilities, in terms of, taking care of our student athletes, and in terms of, competition on the field.
Well, Larry, we appreciate a few minutes today. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds great, Zach. Take care. And you too, Chase.
Larry Dougherty right there, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Temple University, joining us right there on the hotline. Gelb and Chase here with you for the main event. We'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get the other side of it, and that's from baseball manager Ryan Wheeler. His sport was not reinstated yesterday by Temple University, and he'll join us next.